Yeah, it's on.
Yeah, there you go. Yep.
Let's try it now.
All right. Can you hear us, Mr. Morris?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Oh,
There
there
we
we go.
go. Yeah. I've been talking about you the whole time. I was talking about your mama. I was talking about your daddy. I didn't talk about your whole family who owe me money. No, I'm just kidding. Sharing with the fact that we're looking forward to you telling us about what happened in Newburgh. I mean, we had soot, we had ashes flying, and I thought it was snowing again, or we were being attacked by a whole bunch of little gnats, billions of them. So hopefully you got a report on that, or at least something. And then we have myths that we're going to talk about in regards to forestry workers, firefighters. And the first question we're going to ask here shortly after we do our introductions is, who is the first woman firefighter in the United States? And stay off of the Google, but it might be impressive. We'll have that plus many, many more facts about firefighting coming up. Also, we believed our consultant, Sergeant Lee Darnell, is likely to show up around 2:30 p.m. He is our correspondent. He's been here day in and day out. And we're going to go into a few things with him in regards to law enforcement and the state of emergency, the state of mind, and how people respond and react during a crisis or an emergency.
Yeah, and we also have an immediate press release from Greenville Fire Rescue, courtesy of the PIO, Jessica Blackwell.
Yes, indeed. So you want me to go ahead and read that?
Yes, sir.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you just heard it. For immediate release, May 15th, 2023. Greenville Fire Rescue, 500 S Green Street, Greenville, North Carolina, around 8:53 a.m. on Monday, May 15th. Greenville Fire and Rescue, along with Red Oak Fire Department and Staten House Fire Department, responded to a call for a multi-story residential structure fire at Building 504 on Traybrook Circle. Upon arrival, heavy smoke and flames were showing. There were a total of 40 firefighters that responded to the call. One firefighter was transported to ECU Health Medical Center for evaluation and is doing well. One civilian was evaluated on the scene and was released. Due to the significant residential structure damages, residents of the apartment buildings were displaced and are being assisted by the American Red Cross. Investigators from Greenville Fire and Rescue and the North Carolina State Bureau of Investigation and the North Carolina Office of the State Fire Marshal, whew, and the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms,
Mm-mm-mm.
and Explosive
Oh my goodness.
ATF, and the Greenville Police Department examined the scene and determined that the fire area of the origin was the second floor balcony. The cause of the fire is still an investigation, and Greenville Fire and Rescue reminds all residents to be sure they have working smoke alarms. That is Jessica Blackwell. Thank you, Miss Jessica Blackwell, Fire and Life Safety Educator, PIO.
I have a question for you, though, Coach Garrison.
Yes, sir.
I've already have the answer since I'm a former firefighter. But with all those agencies being called and involved, doesn't that sound like the fire may have been suspicious?
Well, it sounds like somebody going to jail. Even though they may not be, it just sounds like if all those agencies were represented, they didn't have nothing else to do, or they really was obligated to come out there and respond to that fire, and everybody's taking a look. Not everybody,
Yeah,
everybody.
everybody. And I guess the main thing is to make sure that it wasn't something malicious.
True. Yeah, no doubts. That fire is a beast, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to continue to talk about that. And right at this time, we got a few moments. Now we're going to introduce Mr. Will Morris. Mr. Will, introduce yourself. Tell us your position and tell us how one can become a firefighter like yourself. I want to highlight your agency before we start drilling you with questions, because people might want to become who you are. How are you today, sir? Proceed.
Sure, I'm doing well. Thank you guys for having me. As you mentioned, my name is Will. I'm the Assistant County Ranger here in Pitt County, North Carolina. That means I work with our County Ranger, Robin, and we kind of take care of the forestry needs here in Pitt. There's ACRs, that's abbreviation for Assistant County Ranger, and county rangers throughout all 100 counties in the state. Pretty much, we help folks with forestry questions. We help them take care of their forest, make sure it's healthy and growing the way they like it to. And then also we do emergency response to help put out fires that get into wooded areas.
And Mr. Morris, I want to ask you if you received my email. I think I forwarded a document to you. I hope it's the correct one, but I think your agency is currently have an initiative going on for grilling or barbecue safety, and I forgot the email what that contained that I sent you.
Hold on. He forgot to tell us how we can be a forest ranger unless he want to protect his state. I know he's second in command, so he might be in charge of recruiting, promotion. I don't know. He just don't want y'all to come work with him.
Coach Garrison want to be Smokey the Bear.
That's right. I want to be Smokey. How do I become a forest ranger, sir?
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks for reminding me. Skipped over that part briefly. Sure. So the agency is pretty much always hiring. Like I said, we're present in all 100 counties. So there's usually a position open somewhere around the state that somebody could get into. To do what I do, the assistant county ranger or even county ranger, they're looking for folks that have a background in some sort of natural science. They definitely like forestry, but other natural sciences are perfectly fine. They're looking for folks that have usually a 2-year associate's degree, maybe a little bit more. Or some good experience working out in the field. That might be working in the private forestry industry, maybe with a company such as Weyerhaeuser or someone else like that. And they're just looking for folks with that sort of background, a little bit of experience. And we definitely do a lot of on-the-job training. Some of what we do can be pretty specific. And so they like to make sure that people are understanding what kind of work they're getting into. So they provide some good training once you get in.
Yeah, you bring up an interesting point. Hold on, man. He talking about the sciences. They like you to have a background in the sciences, so that means they want you to understand the way that how much more of how to fight a fire do you understand? Need to understand about how the fire is lit or feeding itself.
Sure. So like I mentioned earlier, we do those emergency services for the firefighting, but we also do so much more, just to ensure the health of forests, make sure they're growing the way that folks are looking for them to do. The emergency services, that firefighting part, there's a couple of specific trainings they really like get people started in. They're called S-Series trainings, S190, 180, L180. That doesn't mean too much, but basically that is a couple of hours of training that folks go through that give them the education on what to expect from a wildfire, ways to be safe while you're out working with them, and then kind of the tactics that we use just to keep a wildfire contained, or the big word that you might hear is suppressed. That just means that we're keeping it knocked down and safe.
I had no earthly idea or working concept that you guys help maintain the health of the forest, which would obviously be the greatest proactivity that you can probably do is to maintain the health. So in other words, you guys are into the planting trees or removing trees or the ecosystem. Is that what you call it? Of the forest?
That's right. We do a little bit of all of it.
Give me a couple of duties that you do that's like dealing with the health and well-being of the forest. What would be something you do that we don't think you do? You go out and water trees?
We might not do that exactly. But we provide a lot of information to people who own forested lands. It could be public or private. And we give them advice on some of the practices that they should be doing to make sure that their trees are growing up healthy and strong just the way they want them to. And kind of linked more direct into health, we also monitor forested areas for diseases and pests, which could be threats to trees.
And Mr. Morris, the last time you were on, if my memory serves me correctly, I did think that you spoke about there is a law enforcement aspect of your agency. And I spoke at a college, I think it was Martin County. There was a Forest Service office on the campus. But I'm assuming that that's separate from the college, but maybe it was for the training purposes. I'm not sure.
Sure. There is a law enforcement aspect to the agency, as you mentioned. A lot of times, if it's determined that a wildfire was started by a person, we like to take an educational approach. We like to talk to them about why that fire might have got away, and it really just goes such a long way to prevent that sort of thing from happening in the future.
Yeah.
All right. So now, speaking of your investigation duties or your inquiries, that look, Glenn, I'm gonna say something humorous. You could be talking to him and pull yourself right in jail quick because he's a smooth talker, and he could like, could you tell me what happened, sir? Well, I was out there, we were just hanging out, and I watched the news earlier that morning where it says the wind advisory, but we were just sitting out there smoking. We won't have, and I like that match ain't gonna burn that much, so I just threw that cigarette down there in that match, and that's all I was doing, and everything with a little bit of smoke came up, and then I went to the car and came back. What did I do wrong? And you can put them bracelets on them right then.
I know that's like when I told you I had to investigate, do an investigation, and I'm questioning one of the guys on the scene. I said, "Sir, do you know what happened?" He said, "Yeah, I saw it with my own eyes." And I was like, "I don't think you could have saw it with somebody else's eyes."
And then I could just see him like, "Yeah, I was just trying to cook a TV dinner out here today.
Yeah.
That's all. We were just trying to eat." Okay, sir. What happened to New Bern?
If you know.
Sure. I'm taking it you're mentioning the Great Lakes fire down in the Croatan.
I thought it was the Croatan. That's what I told somebody. I said
Yep.
it would be a big fire, and I thought it was local. And then somebody said New Bern, and I said Croatan.
Can you please explain to me what you're referring to? Croatan,
the Croatan National Forest.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yep. It's a large section of the woods down there, a little bit south of New Bern. Crosses like over a couple county lines. You guys are going to have pretty much the same information I do. I'm not a PIO for that fire, so there's only so much I can speak to. But as I understand it, it's about 3,600 acres or so now. They've got it pretty well contained. As we know, it started about a month ago, so a lot of that active fire has kind of dissipated. And if folks are familiar with eastern North Carolina, a lot of the soils out here are what they call organic soils. So the dead leaves and twigs and whatnot, they kind of stack up on each other over time, and they really break down into very fine material. But once it does get lit, it tends to smolder for a long time. So a lot of the bigger fires in the eastern part of the state can sort of perpetuate and keep continuing for long, long periods of time, just because that soil is continuing to smolder.
And Mr. Morris, Greenville reminds all its residents to have working smoke detectors. I would like for you to remind all of our residents that when you're burning things in your yard, whether it's shrubbery or any kind of debris, you have to be mindful of anything that might be harmful that's eliminated in the air, that might be in the air that's and can go in somebody's open window that cause harm to them.
Yeah, absolutely. You want to make sure if you're having a fire outside that you're just burning organic matter. If you have any trash or anything, make sure to take that to the curb or see that it gets to the dump.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, right before the break, here comes our trivia question here. Who was the first known female fighter in the United States? It's a two-part question because it's an easy question, but I got to help you out. Was the first known lady firefighter in 1957, 1967, or 1987? And was it Molly Williams, Whitney Houston, or Jennifer Hudson? Who was the first female firefighter, and what year was the first female firefighter?
That's got to be that lady Molly.
Okay. Anybody? Muhammad?
Probably Molly.
Okay. Mr. Morris?
I'll probably go with Molly as well, although there's a lot of multi-talented people out there.
Yeah.
Jennifer Hudson could have been the first celebrity firefighter. Whitney Houston. All right. That was. And what year? What year was this? Was in the 1900s or the 2000s?
All right, but you just reminded me of something. But I don't want to cut you off.
Yeah, because we ran out of time.
There was a female celebrity in California that was on the forest fire service. As a part of her sentence, they would go helped the fires put out fires in California.
Wow. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, what year? Anybody got an idea? The 1900s or
1800s.
Mr. Morris?
Oh, you've got me stumped on that one. I'm really curious. I'm not sure.
All right. It was the 1800s. The first known female firefighter in the United States was in the early 1800s. She was an African-American slave from New York named Molly Williams, who was said to be as good a fire laddie as many of the boys. In the 1820s, Marina Betts was a volunteer firefighter in Pittsburgh. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. This was a slave that was the first firefighter, and in New York, that's when they probably was carrying buckets of water to
I was
the
about
fire.
to say that, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I was about to say that. That was the buckets, carrying buckets of water.
Well, I think 1 minute to go. But Mr. Morris, what was the first containers that they carried to a fire? Was it a truck, a horse, or something? A horse and buggy? I don't know. Maybe I could give you a chance to think about that. Because I'm wondering how they brought water to the fire when they first brought water to the fire.
Yeah, because we got 40 seconds, Vern.
Bucket brigade,
All
right? Pass buckets in between folks.
You got that right. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be right back. Thank you for participating in the first episode, first part of the show. We got plenty more to go. This is WBIS LP 106.9, and I just can't wait. Matter of fact, we should start off when we come back talking to Muhammad, and he can go ahead and talk to us a little bit about his cybersecurity point before we get back to Mr. Morris.
Yeah, before we get back to Mr. Morris, get his thoughts together, because I know you have a lot of pertinent information to share with us. 106.9 FM, ladies and gentlemen. Back in a moment.
A big moment.
For decades, I felt like almost everywhere I went in my life, my job, different sports I played, whatever, people were cheering me and saying I was really good at stuff.
This is Real Family Life with Dave and Ann Wilson.
And then I come home and feel like you were booing me.
Because you weren't as good at home as you were out there. And I feel like
You're not supposed to say that right now. That's not in the script.
But I feel like you were great out there, and I wanted you and thought you'd be motivated to be better at home if I critiqued you.
Well, let's get real. Words have power. And when you started praising me at home, I wanted to run home.
And I had to start seeing the things you were doing right instead of doing wrong. And that's critical for us to see the good and not the negative.
So find your spouse doing something right and good and give them a cheer.
We're Ann and Dave Wilson, and that's Real Family Life.
Get more at familylife.com/real.
We are the station that brings you inspiration for the family and ministry teaching for practical Christian living. Awesome Radio.
All right, we are back, ladies and gentlemen. This is WBIS LP 106.9. Dr. Glenn Johnson, Coach Vernon Garrison, Mr. Muhammad Inab, and our very special correspondent, Mr. Will Morris. Ladies and gentlemen, coming up, the next trivial question is, it won't be right now, but after Muhammad, what is the number one killer in a fire? What is the number one killer in a fire? So we can be talking about that shortly. It is a very dangerous beast, even though we're talking about it lightly. Mr. Muhammad is on deck right now, sir.
I'm going to be talking about WAN domain and what's it control. The WAN domain is represented by the internet and stands for wide area networks. All outside entities are represented by this domain, including our business, other business websites, and all external endpoints. It controls websites so it can protect from viruses or from hackers, as well as VPN, which creates a secure tunnel that protects your data and allows all traffic, voice, or data to pass through a public one as if it were a private circuit or LAN. And it can also control backup and redundant links and access devices.
Okay, so one domain.
WAN domain, yes.
WAN domain.
Yep.
You said one is ONE.
WAN.
Okay, WAN.
Juan
Yes.
domain. That sounds like something I order with my chicken and rice. Yeah, Juan time. All right. Well, and now what is the most prevalent point we need to be conscious about Juan domain? Is that a security aspect that we should be thinking about when we set it up, or is it a part of it's part of our computer life that we don't know much about?
It's something you should consider because it's key to protect your website from viruses and from hackers or anyone causing like a third party.
So when we're creating a domain, the type of domain we should buy that gives extra added security.
Yes, sir.
Gotcha. So that's a category, ladies and gentlemen. Remember, get a WAN domain. So there's some homework for you guys out there that are coming up with ideas and new websites and things of that nature. If you're looking for a domain, that's a category that our cybersecurity guys done the research and tells you that you should get.
That's absolutely right.
All right. Well, here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Fire is a beast. It is a very scary thing. I've been through some fire training in my life. I had a black trash bag put over my head, and I had to crawl around the room and look for dead bodies in the scenario. And it really scared me, like I was looking for dead bodies in the scenario, even in training, because I feel like I was going to be burning up. Sir, when it comes to, have you been involved in any fatalities in your job? Not that I want you to, but have you been around or involved in fatalities in the business of firefighting since you've been on board? Yes, sir, Mr. Willis.
No, considering myself fortunate, I have not.
Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I guess it's time for the thriller killer question here. What is the most deadliest part of a fire? Would it be, ladies and gentlemen, being burnt to a crisp in the fire, or would it be the most dangerous thing in the fire is not knowing where you're going and how to get out of the fire, or the last answer would be smoke inhalation?
The answer, correct answer would be smoke inhalation.
You didn't even let me go back over the question.
Because I know what it is. But I got a question for you that you asked Mr. Will.
But hold on, let me ask Mr. Morris
All right,
what the
I'm
answer
sorry.
might be.
All right, I'm sorry.
What do you think the answer is, sir? Smoke inhalation, burnt to a crisp,
You know he knows.
or not going in the right direction according to the fire escape route?
Sure, I would guess smoke inhalation. Definitely in wildfire settings, the big thing that we worry about is the superheated gases just coming off of the flame front. They can really get you.
You know, I watched Backdraft years ago, and that movie educated me as to, it didn't educate me, but it gave me a thought that the fire has a personality. And the fire has a personality that will get you. And I have since then, when I see on the news that you guys are fighting a forest fire, I see you guys going out in brigades or teams and going to fight a fire all over the country. But I can't help but think of a war zone like situation, and y'all fighting in one direction, and all of a sudden the fire will come up on another direction and trap people. Is that a real kind of scenario, that the way firefighters fatalities happen for firefighters while you guys are doing your job?
Yeah, it can happen. The entrapments are really dangerous. We have a bunch of sort of rules and playbooks, so to speak, that we work off of, where they take a look at really dangerous and sometimes fatal incidents that have occurred previously. They kind of analyze, they do an analysis to see maybe where a mistake was made, or maybe where a decision could have been changed. And we work off of those for all of our future fires. There's a lot of practices, things that we simply will not do because we know that they're inherently dangerous. And there's a lot of practices that we like to follow since they tend to be a lot safer.
And Coach Garrison, I want to respond to the question that you asked Mr. Will. Because as a former firefighter, I believe the question you posed to him was, has he ever been in a fire situation where there was a fatality? And I have. The reason why I want to respond to that, because I want to make sure our listening audience know how important this is. When I was with Neptune Township Fire Department, Liberty Fire Company, we had to provide mutual aid to another company within the same department. And the house was fully involved. It was a large house, fully involved. I think it was a 3-alarmer. And once we saw that the fire marshal, Monmouth County Fire Marshal, was on the scene, we knew there had to be a fatality involved. And unfortunately, every firefighter became grief-stricken. They had to call the hospital, have some nurses come on the scene, because when they went in to search the house, we found the body of 5 children. Everybody was tore up from the floor up, as you can imagine. So, ladies and gentlemen, I just made that point because I want you to remember how important fire safety is. We got 2 minutes to go before we go to the break. But when we come back, we'll get into the topic about fire safety, because one of the things I want to mention is how you're no longer in school. So if you're at a public building anywhere and a fire alarm is sounding, you are not to assume it's a fire drill. You are to assume it's an actual fire and evacuate, because a lot of people have that tendency, the alarm goes off, first thing coming in their mouth, it's a fire drill. No, it's not a drill. It's not a drill unless somebody says it's a drill. It could be an actual fire, and you are to evacuate. Go to the nearest exit. Mr. Will, would you like to respond to that, sir?
Sure. Yeah. Always make sure you're keeping your eyes and ears open. If there's a fire alarm going on, take it seriously.
Exactly. Vernon.
Well, guys, we got just a couple of minutes left for another trivial question here. Who and how old is the youngest firefighter to date? Would that be someone who is at the age of 21, or someone at the age of 18, or would it have been someone at the age of 16? How old is the youngest firefighter? He was from Darlington, or is out of Darlington, South Carolina. And at the time, it was determined he was the youngest firefighter. So 21, 18, or 16. Which one, guys? Certified firefighter. Certified.
Can I respond?
No. Mr. Morris, who's the youngest firefighter?
We'll guess 16.
Muhammad?
18, I guess.
18. And
I say 16. I'm saying that for a reason.
All right. Okay. Darlington, South Carolina, age 16. You were probably studying world history, not making history, but for Darlington residents, Brandon Odom breaking the record in this part of his life. He was 16 years old at the time. All right, ladies and gentlemen, when we come back, we will continue to talk to Mr. Morris. Thank you. This is WBIS LP 106.9 FM.
Okay, man, this is your time. Maybe you didn't choose this, but you're here now. You're going to go out there and be an all-star caregiver. Cook, clean, be there emotionally and physically. You got to dig deeper. Drive them to physical therapy, doctor's appointments, because that's what caregivers do. Don't give up. Show the world that you're tougher than tough. Caregiving is tougher than tough. Find the care guides you need at aarp.org/caregiving. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
We are the station that provides inspiration for the family and ministry teaching for practical Christian living. Awesome Radio.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back. We are back talking to a hero, talking to a first responder in person, live. And how you say it, Glenn? Live. Of course, he's alive. If we're talking to him, he is a hero. Why? What makes a hero? Because these guys run to danger. They go and stop the threat. What do you do? That's what I'm saying. What do you do in your life? You're like, well, I take care of a family. Yes, that could be a stressful situation. I drive a truck. That's definitely a stressful situation. I drive the city of Greenville. That's definitely a high-risk city situation. But our first responders who have taken on the job, the position, taken a salary for a job that could take away a weekly salary where their job could be taken away in a few minutes, just trying to intervene and protect you and I. They run to the danger. So it looks like 9/11 was the most deadliest day in history. I was going to make a trivial question out of it, but I won't. It looks like 9/11 was the most traumatic day in history for first responders, with various numbers of categories, EMTs that were killed that day, firefighters that were killed that day, all in the name of saving our lives. And so we want to just take our hats off to the people that fought and died for us in the name of fire and rescue. One of the things that I want to ask Mr. Morris is, one of the elements of being a forestry fire person is, or any type of fireman, is having courage. And we talked to the EMTs, and they told us they have a sort of a system when you become a EMT or paramedic, probably EMT first. They talk to you after certain things happen. You go out and you see fatalities, you see, people in a state that most of us don't see, their bodies, they have a system where they can pick up, and obviously people do quit. In your business, you have few and far between incidences. I don't think you back up the local fire department, do you? Do you respond, or is it just when it's a forest fire?
Mostly when it's just a forest fire, that's when it becomes our jurisdiction.
So when does a new person know that they've tried and true in a situation like yours? Do we send you off to California? We got to check Morris out. We sending him out to that blaze out there. If he come back, we can keep him. If he don't come back, he's fired. Get it?
Sure. So I'll answer it in two parts. I'll say that there's always something to be learned because every fire that we encounter is going to be different. No two situations will be the same. So you're constantly evolving that way, learning new techniques, new tactics. Another thing I'll add to it is to be sent to kind of larger, more involved incidents, as they call. There's a system called task books. Basically, kind of lays out sort of what kind of responsibilities you can expect from a person. And people are always working on those, getting them checked off, trying out new situations, demonstrating that they can handle the responsibility. And then they complete a task book and they move on to the next one.
Sergeant Lee Darnell, ladies and gentlemen, our consultant for Pitt County Sheriff's Department, he's jumping in, and he's always good at code situations. As well as in the fire response, in law enforcement, when you have a new officer, at what point, you're the supervisor and you're watching a new officer, at what point can you tell, or if you can tell, whether the officer is fit for the job? Would you recommend the officer that he find another career or quit? Because we don't need no Barney Millers to come up and say, like Glenn would. Glenn would come up to a situation. He was like, "Pow, pow, can I see your ID?" So at what point do you assess an officer and say he's going to make it? And have you ever, I'm just giving him a big question, talk to an officer and say, yeah, you were pretty scared in that situation and you can't control your emotions. You need to go drive a truck, deliver mail because you're not fit for law enforcement. Can you determine that early, sir? He muted. Hello.
Hi.
There you go. Yes, sir.
It is a process that you can begin to determine early, and we'll start that as early as a background investigation, and we'll go back as early as, you may apply to us and be, let's say, in your 30s, and when you apply to us, we'll go back as far as high school. We'll go interview neighbors, friends, previous employers, high school teachers. We will dig back so deep, it will take many months to do a background investigation into you, to really to get at the heart of who you are, to try to understand you more than you understand yourself. And we're not experts at behavioral psychology either, but to know the background part of it, at least to look at your behaviors, to look and see that person you used to live beside of, but moved away from 10 years ago. You haven't lived beside of them for 10 years. Let's see what that person says about you. What kind of a neighbor were you 10 years ago? That should say a little bit about how your personality is today and how you respond to people. What kind of a neighbor were you? Were you easy to deal with as a person? Did you stay up and party all night? Did you pass out in your backyard? Did you yell and scream when you'd come over about an issue? What kind of a person were you to deal with? And we would also involve licensed psychologists to get involved and do examinations, as well as medical physicians to be a part of the process. It's a very long, very complicated process, not like it was when I first got into the business. When I first got into it, there wasn't a psychologist involved. When I was first sworn in, no psychology exam. I've since been through many of them to stay in the business.
Yeah.
Those are advancements.
But sorry, you're absolutely right. I don't want to cut you off, but you're absolutely right, because when I was going through the process of the U.S. Marshal Service, I was getting calls and people coming by my house, friends that I grew up with, and they'd be like, well, there was some guy at my door in a suit asking a lot of questions about you. I just want to come over and let you know. But my question to you is, how much of that is based on perception versus profiling?
Now, perception versus profiling. Oh, profiling. Oh, goodness. I don't know.
I know a lot of supervisors. They can tell, like Coach Garrison pointed out, they can tell who fits where and who doesn't.
Right. And once you're out there and working, like our field training process here, you will spend many months going through our field training process, and you'll work with multiple field training officers. So you'll work a month here, 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 each time with a different certified field trainer, so that you get different perspectives. And each one gets a different chance to evaluate you, and each one gets that chance to compare notes at the end as well, and along the way. So if we all come up with the same answers, there's probably something to that. But if 5 evaluators over 5 months, if they all say this one is weak in this area, they're not going to be a solid officer, they don't have what it takes, we have a problem. But at the end of 5 months, they're all like, yes, excellent officer, going to be a great candidate. Give them 2 years, we're going to be able to make something of them and work toward the next level. Then we've definitely got something to work with, I think. But at the same time, I've had officers out there in the street, and you see them get into a bad situation and they freeze, or they start to make very poor judgments, and you start to wonder what's going to happen in case of their career. Sometimes they make it and sometimes they don't, and that's okay. Not everybody's cut out to do this line of work. That's right. Not applied against them. That's there's nothing wrong with that.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, trivial question here. What is the average age of a police officer? The average age of a police officer to date. What is the average age? I will say, I'll give you a choice here. Is the average age 45 to 50? 39 to 45, or 29 to 39? What is the average age of a police officer? We're giving out 1 million goody good points today and make you feel good. Put Sergeant Lee Darnell on the spot here. Oh boy, whew. All his superiors are watching. What is the average age of a police officer?
I would say the younger one.
Okay, 29 to 39.
Yep.
Okay, Mr. Morris.
Yeah, I'd say it's the younger age bracket as well.
Okay, Johnson.
The younger age bracket as well, 29, 39.
Muhammad.
29, 39.
Yes, indeed, ladies and gentlemen. The average age. There are over 324,951 police officers currently employed in the United States. 16.8% of all police officers are women, while 83.2% are men, and the average age of an employed police officer is 39 years old.
And Coach Garrison, while you're on that particular point there, I just want to point out that it's getting tougher and tougher and tougher in the law enforcement industry, because now some agencies or departments require a 4-year degree.
Yes. Yes.
So yeah, it's getting a lot stricter and a lot tougher.
All right. What's the average age of a firefighter, Mr. Morris? What's the average age of a firefighter in the United States, gentlemen?
I'd expect that to be a lower age bracket as well.
Okay, you're saying 29 to 39, 39 to 49, or 49 to 59. Anybody else want to take a stab at that?
I think it might even be younger than the 39, 29, 39.
All right. Now everybody's in the age bracket for firefighters. Muhammad, you want to put your marble in the circle?
I'm probably not going to answer that.
All right. You're a smart guy. The average age of an employed firefighter is 48 years old. Wow. Most common ethnicity of firefighters is white, 76.8%, followed by Hispanic, 8.2%, unknown, 5.9%. That's interesting. And Black or African American, 5.8%. Firefighters are most in demand in Los Angeles, California. So it's the old school guys just fighting the fights. Interesting. That more brass. That's what it is. Them guys that walk around and look important.
But what's mind-boggling to me is, who is the unknown?
Right.
What ethnicity is unknown?
It's 5.9% that we don't know what their race they are.
What are they, invisible?
Is there something on the application, Mr. Morris, that you don't have to identify?
I guess that would depend on the agency.
I hear you. Is that the bat phone ringing?
It was.
Oh, okay. But yeah, so seriously though, there's 5.9% unknown, and maybe there's a question up there that says they don't have to report your race, and they possibly are interracial, if you want to look at it in that way, or foreign firefighters. That have you ever met a foreign firefighter? I've never met a Latino firefighter, much less somebody from another country.
I have. They were from the UK, London, and then their jurisdiction is called Fire Brigade.
You were in London or here in America?
Here in America.
Okay.
But I want to go back to what you was asking about a second ago. That's almost like, and I hate to mention this company's name because I don't know if they still do it. I was trying to get some relative or updated information. It's like if you live in New York City and you apply to work at Burger King, you do not have to check the part that says, have you ever been arrested? Because so many people in New York City have been arrested, they preclude them from answering that question. And I think in Louisiana also.
Well, I tell you what, we can't do that here in the South. We ain't got arsonists out here fighting fires. I don't want that, even though that's probably something that they do. All right, well, let's get serious about one more little subject before we end the show today. I want to ask each of our panelists and guests today about the state of mind in emergencies. I've talked to Greenville Fire Department, and they said their issue is people don't know how to get out of the way when emergency services come through. I want to basically we're going to do a little show on that because they said we don't know how to get over to the right and move. But what that led me to today is the state of mind of people in emergencies. I'll start with Sergeant Donnell. We got technology, we got education and information all at our fingertips, but are we becoming better subjects to work with in the time of crisis when you're giving directives? Are we committing crimes because we're having mental health issues? How are we? That's your job to assess my state of mind. It's your job, Mr. Morris, to make sure that you got me in the right place, even though you're hurting like a cattle. You're keeping me from living in certain areas. You're maintaining the property lines. But as far as the state of mind of people that you're dealing with in fires, how are we good subjects and students to teach and give your commands to? And we got 2 minutes, and we'll let Sergeant Darnell take 3 minutes. We'll let Sergeant Darnell take a minute. The state of mind in the crisis. How are we doing?
Garbage in, garbage out.
Ooh.
It's only as good as the effort we put in to train you and work with you. So it really takes a lot of effort on our part to get people ready. And from what I see, as far as moving over and things like that, and people being ready. So.
And Sergeant, Coach Garrison, just let me take a moment to thank Mr. Will Morris for being here today on such short notice. So I really appreciate it. Mr. Will, hats off to you, sir.
Okay, Mr. Will, as far as giving directives and emergency orders and even proactive, how well do you think we're educated enough to follow your orders?
I'd say a lot of the folks we deal with in wildland fire work out pretty well. Pretty good relationship with them. That being said, there's usually not a ton of people, especially not the general public, involved in wildland fires, especially the smaller ones. It's usually only a couple people per incident that we'll end up interacting with.
Right. So when you tell us to evacuate, we ain't gonna sit there and negotiate with you. Is the fire coming? I'm gonna wait till I get to the property line, so you can just come back and get me later. We don't have the audacity like some people say they're gonna stand there and protect their property. Other than that, Sergeant Darnell is Crime Stoppers. I participated in a scenario where he was showing us, made a video of how to respond, put your hands on the steering wheel, all kinds of ways. How's that working out now? You got about 30, 40 seconds. Give us an update. Are people learning from those educational videos that you're putting out?
I think so. The more we do to educate the public, I think the more they understand. Sometimes it just falls back on us to paint those pictures so people can understand better. Just for people to just get it sometimes.
Well, I want to thank everybody for joining us. Sergeant Darnell set up a meeting where I am the cop, but I'm not really a cop, and I'm stopping Glenn Johnson over there, and I wanted to show how I can abuse him, but I'm not a cop, though. We appreciate you guys, and it's been a measurable blessing to talk to heroes in person. You're bigger than characters in my life, and I want to thank you both for your service. We'll be back next month. We're looking forward to doing that violence show. So stay tuned. This has been WBISLP 106.9 Police Report First Responders. Have a great day. Sergeant Darnell, stay on after detention. Yeah.
Have you ever thought if I just had a little more money, it would solve this or that problem? The